Imagine your own daughter looking at you like you don't matter, and then handing over your room to someone else, as if you were invisible. That happened to me, and what I did next changed everything. I had always believed that a mother's love was enough to hold a family together. That morning in my little home in California, I woke up with a simple sense of purpose: to enjoy a quiet cup of tea and check on the roses that bloomed outside my window. Life had been far from perfect, but I found solace in my routines. The hum of the city in the distance, the gentle sunlight spilling across my living room, and the memories that clung to every corner of my home. But that day, all of it seemed to vanish in a single conversation. Anna had returned from Europe after 5 long years. She had left for college when she was barely 18, full of dreams and ambitions that seemed larger than life itself. I had spent countless nights worrying about her, staying awake until I knew she was safe. I had been proud of her independence, her drive, and the woman she had become. Or so I thought. When she walked through the front door, my heart leapt. I imagined hugs, laughter, and stories shared over cups of steaming tea. But instead I was met with an icy glance that froze the air between us. "Hi, Mom," she said, her tone polite but distant, almost rehearsed. "Anna, you're home. I've missed you so much," I replied, my voice trembling with excitement. "Come, sit down. I made your favorite tea, peppermint and chamomile." She nodded, setting her bag down in the corner of the living room. I could feel the tension, a subtle resistance in her posture, but I brushed it off. Maybe she was tired from the flight. I poured the tea into 2 delicate cups, the aroma filling the kitchen, and offered one to her. She took it without a smile, her fingers barely brushing mine. There was a hesitation in her eyes, one that I didn't understand. "Not yet. Thanks, Mom," she said. And then, without any warning, she dropped a sentence that would pierce through my heart like a jagged knife. "You know, Mom, you're really too old to matter these days." The words echoed in the room. I froze, the cup trembling in my hand. I stared at her, unable to process what I had just heard. "Excuse me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I mean it," she continued, sitting across from me, crossing her arms. "You're old. Things have changed. I don't think you need this room anymore." Her words hit me harder than anything else in my life. The very room I had filled with memories, my sanctuary, my refuge after years of hard work and sacrifice, was now being claimed as though I had no right to it. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask why she thought she could speak to me like that, but all that came out was a shaky breath. "Anna, this is your home." "Yes, but this is my home too," I managed to say. "I raised you here. I put every bit of love and effort into this house. Into you. How can you just say that?" She looked away, almost bored. "Mom, it's just time to move on. I need the space for myself. You understand, don't you?" The shock I felt was compounded by disbelief. My own daughter, the girl I had nurtured from a baby, was giving away my room like I was a stranger. I wanted to retreat, to leave the house and never look back. But something inside me sparked, something that refused to let this injustice go unanswered. For hours we argued. Or rather, I tried to argue, but Anna remained unyielding. She had that same confident, unshakable demeanor I had once admired in her, the one that had won her accolades abroad. But now, that same confidence felt like a weapon aimed directly at me. She started packing some of my belongings into boxes, ignoring my protests. My books, my old photographs, the trinkets I had collected over decades. They were being treated like meaningless clutter, and the more she packed, the more my fury and disbelief grew. Finally, I had to leave the room. I wandered into the garden, running my hands over the familiar petals of my roses, trying to steady myself. Each bloom seemed to whisper memories of better times. Laughing children shared secrets, birthdays celebrated, tears comforted. I realized then that this was more than a room she wanted. It was a symbol of my displacement, my invisibility in the eyes of my own child. And yet, as hurt as I was, a quiet resolve began to grow inside me. Life had knocked me down before, yes, but I had always found a way to rise. I wasn't going to crumble under Anna's cruelty. If she thought she could erase me, she was gravely mistaken. That night I lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every hurtful word. My mind began to plot, not out of vengeance alone, but out of the desire to reclaim my dignity, my home, and ultimately, the respect that had been stripped from me. I would need patience, strategy, and perhaps a little bit of cunning. Anna had underestimated me. She had no idea that the woman she dismissed as too old had a lifetime of wisdom, endurance, and, most importantly, pride. By the time I drifted into a restless sleep, one thing was clear. This story was far from over. The quiet, broken woman who had been shoved aside was ready to rise. And when she did, the consequences would shock everyone, especially Anna. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you loved, hit that like button. Because this story isn't just about heartbreak, it's about the sweet justice that followed. Stay with me, because what comes next will shock you. The next morning, the house felt colder than ever, not because of the California fog or the draft from the windows, but because of the invisible wall Anna had erected between us. Her words, sharp and deliberate, echoed in every corner. "You're too old to matter." I kept hearing them as I moved around my home, each room whispering reminders of laughter that had once filled these walls. And now, silence. A hollow, bitter silence. I realized that my first step had to be observation. To reclaim my dignity and my home, I needed to understand the enemy, my own daughter. I quietly watched her as she moved through the house, unpacking, redecorating, and making herself comfortable in the room that had been mine for decades. Each movement she made seemed like a deliberate claim, a way of saying, I am in charge now. It wasn't just the room. It was the way she treated my belongings, brushing aside my photos and trinkets like they were trash. That night I found my mother's old letters in a cardboard box she had carelessly shoved into the closet. I carefully read through them, feeling the weight of generations. How dare Anna treat my family's memories like they meant nothing? Anger simmered, but it was a controlled fire. I knew rash action would only play into her hands. I needed a plan, a way to regain what had been taken from me without losing myself in childish retaliation. My first move was subtle. I began leaving small notes, reminders of memories that were ours, in places she frequented. On the bathroom mirror I left a sticky note. Remember the summer of 2005, when we planted roses together? In the kitchen by the tea kettle. Another note. This tea reminds us of our Sunday mornings together. I could see her noticing them, frowning, slightly annoyed. But these notes were more than reminders. They were signals that I wasn't gone. I still had a presence in this home, and I was willing to make her acknowledge it, even if indirectly. Then came the first real confrontation. Anna had invited her friends over to celebrate her return. The living room was filled with laughter and music, all while I sat quietly in the corner, forced into the shadows of my own house. I watched as they moved around, sipping wine, complimenting her on her stylish decor and modern touches she had made to the room that was mine. I felt a pang of humiliation, but I forced myself to remain calm. My time for action would come, and when it did, it would be precise and unforgettable. Later that evening, Anna came into the kitchen carrying a glass of wine. She was smiling, unaware that I had spent the entire day quietly planning my next move. "Mom, why are you sitting here all alone? You should join us," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "I think I'll pass," I replied, my voice steady. "But I do want to talk to you about something important." She raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. "Oh, what is it?" I took a deep breath. "Anna, I understand you're excited to be back, and I know you want your space. But this house, these rooms, the memories, they aren't just yours. They belong to me too. I deserve respect, Anna, not just in words but in actions." Her smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of impatience. "Mom, I'm just trying to make this feel like home. You're overthinking it." "No, Anna," I said firmly, locking eyes with her. "I'm not overthinking. You've crossed a line, and while I won't let this ruin our relationship, I also won't let you erase me." Her eyes narrowed slightly, and I knew she felt the shift. For the first time, she realized that I wasn't going to fade quietly into the background. Over the next few days, I began reclaiming small territories within the house. I dusted my bookshelves, rearranged photos, and reinstated my familiar decor. I started cooking meals that had been a tradition in our family for decades, filling the house with smells and sounds that reminded her, and me, of the home I had built. But it wasn't just about possessions. I needed information. I quietly asked neighbors, friends, and even distant relatives about Anna's time abroad. What had changed in her? Why did she seem so detached, so ungrateful? Piece by piece, I began assembling a picture of her life over the past 5 years, finding moments of pride, moments of struggle, and most importantly, her vulnerabilities. One afternoon, as I was watering the roses in the garden, I overheard Anna on a video call with a friend. Her voice was sharp, dismissive, almost arrogant. She spoke about plans to renovate the house, to modernize it completely, and to get rid of old clutter. My heart sank. She truly saw my life, my memories, as disposable. That night, I sat at my desk, writing down everything I had learned. I realized that my path to reclaiming my home and my dignity would require patience, subtlety, and careful strategy. I couldn't rely on anger or confrontation alone. I needed leverage, timing, and cunning. By the end of the week, I had devised a plan. It was simple in theory, but would require careful execution. I would let Anna continue thinking she had the upper hand. I would play the part of the passive, quiet mother, the one who seemed to accept her behavior. But behind that calm exterior I was preparing. Every note, every memory, every conversation was a step in my strategy to reclaim not just the room, but my place in my daughter's life, and in my own home. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling once again, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Empowerment. Anna had underestimated me, assuming that age had made me weak or irrelevant. She had no idea that the woman she dismissed as too old to matter had a mind sharp enough to plan, and a heart resilient enough to endure anything. The first strike of betrayal had been dealt. Yes, But the response was coming, and when it arrived, Anna would finally see that respect, once lost, could not be ignored forever. The days that followed were a quiet battlefield. On the surface, I remained the calm, passive mother who seemed to accept her daughter's disregard. But underneath, I was working with precision, observing Anna's habits, her weaknesses, and the little cracks in her armor that she assumed no one could see. Every laugh, every careless remark, every step she took in the house was a clue, a piece of the puzzle that would allow me to turn the situation in my favor. Anna had grown used to having the house on her terms. She redesigned my room, brought in new furniture, and even changed the lighting to something modern and sleek. She thought she had won, thought she had erased my presence. But her overconfidence was the perfect weakness. It began with small psychological moves. I started leaving subtle reminders of our past, strategically placed to make her pause. On her new desk, I left a framed photo of the two of us planting flowers in the backyard when she was 7. On the nightstand, I placed a note that read, "The memories you cherish now were once mine too." At first, she barely noticed, but slowly, I could see her glance at the photos with hesitation, a tiny flicker of guilt in her eyes. It was enough to let me know that my presence was not entirely erased. Next, I began to remind her of her responsibilities in subtle ways. I found herself forgetting small details, appointments, bills, errands, that I had once helped her manage. I didn't confront her directly. Instead, I made gentle suggestions, quietly guiding her without making her feel controlled. "Anna," I said one afternoon while she was tidying the living room, "don't forget the deadline for your project next week. I remember how stressed you were when you were abroad. You might want to double-check your schedule." She frowned, muttering under her breath. But I noticed that she immediately opened her planner and checked the date. Small victories, yes, but each one chipped away at her false sense of dominance. One evening, I overheard her complaining to a friend on the phone, saying, "I don't know why Mom keeps interfering. She's too old to understand anything now." I smiled quietly to myself. Exactly. That was the point. I was too old in her eyes. But that meant she underestimated me. And underestimation is the perfect breeding ground for karma. I began to exploit her overconfidence further. Anna loved to host parties, inviting her friends over to flaunt her new design choices. I let her have these gatherings, but I subtly made sure that her overconfidence led her into minor inconveniences. One night, I accidentally moved a few of her decorative items while cleaning, causing her friends to trip over them. Another time, I forgot to mention that the candles she had lit were in unsafe positions. Each mishap was small enough not to cause real harm, but enough to unsettle her confidence. Meanwhile, I began researching ways to legally reclaim parts of the house. I spoke with neighbors who remembered how I had maintained and cared for the home over decades. I documented everything. The renovations, the memories, even old utility bills in my name. It wasn't just about emotional justice. It was about creating a foundation of undeniable proof that I had rights, both as a mother and as the original owner of the house. As I worked quietly, I noticed a shift in Anna. The once confident young woman began to show signs of frustration and irritation. She became less patient, snapping at friends over minor disagreements. She seemed exhausted, like the weight of maintaining her perceived control was heavier than she anticipated. One night, as we both sat in the living room, she made a careless comment. "Mom, you really should let go of the past. It's done. You're too old to fix anything now." I looked at her calmly, my voice soft but firm. "Anna, letting go isn't the same as accepting disrespect. You've forgotten that respect isn't given. It's earned. And when someone forgets that, there are consequences." Her eyes widened slightly, sensing a change in my tone. It was subtle, but she knew I wasn't just speaking for the sake of argument. There was power behind my words, a confidence she hadn't seen in years. The following day, I began implementing a more tangible plan. I started restoring parts of the house to their former glory, subtly undoing some of her changes. I didn't confront her directly, didn't argue over her taste in decor. Instead, I quietly rearranged furniture, brought back family photos to prominent places, and reintroduced elements that had sentimental value. When she saw these changes, she was taken aback. "Mom, what are you doing?" she demanded, trying to sound authoritative. I smiled, just making sure the house still feels like home, for both of us. Her frustration was evident, but there was nothing she could do without causing a bigger conflict. And that was precisely what I wanted. Each day her arrogance was chipped away, replaced by an uneasy awareness that her control over the house was not absolute. Meanwhile, I began reconnecting with my own social circle. Friends, neighbors, even distant relatives. I shared stories about my struggles, the disrespect I had endured, and the resilience I was building. Word spread slowly, quietly, but enough for Anna to notice subtle changes in how others treated her. Her social dominance began to waver, just as my influence quietly grew. By the end of the week, I had laid the groundwork. Anna's confidence had been shaken, my presence restored, and the first seeds of revenge had been planted. But the real game had only just begun. I knew that patience was key. True justice isn't impulsive. It's calculated, deliberate, and precise. And as I lay in bed that night, I felt a sense of satisfaction. Anna had underestimated me. She had dismissed me as too old to matter. But soon she would learn that age does not determine strength. Experience, wisdom, and resilience do. Anna had become increasingly restless. The subtle reminders, the quiet restoration of my space, and the small inconveniences I orchestrated had begun to shake her confidence. She tried to maintain control, but cracks were forming in her carefully constructed image of dominance. Her friends noticed it too, and I could see the unease in her interactions. The once confident, self-assured young woman now moved with hesitance, always second-guessing herself, and then she made a critical mistake. It was a Saturday morning when she decided to host a brunch for her friends and colleagues. She wanted to impress everyone with the new Anna and her revamped living space. I watched silently from the kitchen, pretending to busy myself with tea preparations. While she busied herself with final touches, I noticed that in her rush, she had left some important documents lying on the living room table. Documents that contained personal and professional information she would not want everyone to see. I considered ignoring it, letting fate handle her. But I realized this was the perfect opportunity to assert myself without appearing overtly confrontational. I quietly moved the papers to a safe spot, out of sight, and noted down the key details she had carelessly exposed. This would be useful later, not for humiliation, but as leverage. When the guests arrived, Anna tried to mask her nerves with forced enthusiasm. She laughed loudly, introduced everyone, and made small talk, but I could see the tension under her polished exterior. She constantly adjusted her dress, glanced at her phone, and bit her lip nervously. The small victories I had achieved over the past week were now visibly taking their toll. At one point, one of her friends commented on the vintage charm of the house. Anna, eager to appear knowledgeable, explained, Oh, yes, my mother. Well, she used to love antiques and old furniture, but I've modernized it for a more contemporary look. Her words were careless, revealing both her dismissiveness and her lack of respect for the very home that had nurtured her. I smiled politely, saying nothing, letting her words hang in the air. Every guest sensed the tension. They could feel the subtle conflict, even if they didn't know the details. After the brunch, while Anna was distracted, I subtly rearranged a few of the items she had so proudly displayed. Nothing dramatic, just enough to create minor inconsistencies she would notice later. I wasn't trying to provoke her into an argument yet. I was planting seeds of self-doubt. Later that afternoon, as Anna reviewed her presentation for a work project she was hosting the next week, she discovered that a few key documents were missing. Panic flashed across her face, and she immediately accused me. "Mom, did you take these? Where are they?" she demanded, her voice rising with anxiety. I remained calm, pouring a cup of tea for myself. "Anna, I noticed they were lying around where anyone could see them. I moved them to keep them safe," I said gently, handing the papers back to her. Her eyes narrowed. "Safe? You're overstepping, Mom. This is my life." I looked her straight in the eyes. "Anna, your life isn't just yours. It's built on the love and care that people have given you, including me. Respect isn't something you can ignore. And when you do, there are consequences." Her hands trembled slightly as she took the papers. That small tremor told me everything I needed to know. The arrogance she had relied on for years was beginning to crack under the weight of reality. That evening I continued my subtle campaign. I began leaving traces of her mistakes in ways she couldn't ignore. A misplaced note here, a gently altered schedule there. Each action was calculated to make her second-guess herself without realizing that I was orchestrating it all. Anna, unaware that she was under scrutiny, began confiding in her friends about her growing frustration. "I don't know what's happening," she said one evening during a phone call. "I feel like I'm losing control of my own house. Mom, she's everywhere. I don't even know how she does it." I overheard every word. I smiled quietly. She had unknowingly admitted her vulnerability, the very thing I had been waiting for. The next day, I took things a step further. I began documenting her careless mistakes in a subtle, non-threatening way. Notes on minor mishaps, small errors in her planning, and overlooked responsibilities were carefully recorded. My goal was not to humiliate her publicly, but to establish undeniable evidence of her recklessness. If necessary, this documentation could be used to assert control over the household and teach her a lesson about respect and responsibility. By the end of the week, Anna's behavior had changed dramatically. She was more cautious, less confident, and visibly stressed. The friends she had invited over now noticed the difference. The once vibrant, self-assured young woman now appeared fragile, uncertain, and, most importantly, aware that her mother was not someone to dismiss lightly. And that's when I realized the first real opportunity for tangible change had arrived. Anna's arrogance had led her into mistakes, and I now had the tools, the strategy, and the leverage to take the next steps. It wasn't about revenge in the traditional sense. It was about restoring balance, reclaiming respect, and proving that age and experience cannot be dismissed. As I lay in bed that night, I reflected on the progress I had made. The battle was far from over, but the tides were shifting. Anna had underestimated me at every turn, believing that her youth and confidence could override decades of wisdom and love. She had no idea that the woman she dismissed as too old to matter was quietly orchestrating a comeback that would change the dynamics of our relationship forever. For the first time since her arrival, I felt a spark of hope. The house would not belong solely to her. The memories, the legacy, and the dignity of a mother who had given everything would be preserved. And Anna, she would learn, in her own way, that underestimating someone is the first step toward their own downfall. By the following week, the tension in the house was palpable. Anna's once commanding presence had weakened. She moved carefully through the rooms, constantly double-checking everything she did, hesitant in her decisions, and overly conscious of my every move. It was as if my quiet strategy had planted seeds of doubt in her mind, and they were growing fast. That Friday, she made a critical mistake that would shift the balance entirely. Anna had invited her closest colleagues over for a dinner she insisted would showcase her independence and authority in the household. She spent the day decorating, cooking, and rehearsing conversations she planned to have. Her confidence had returned slightly, but it was brittle, like thin ice over deep water. I had noticed she was relying on certain key appliances and resources, things she didn't fully understand, because she had ignored them in her absence. For example, she had attempted to cook a complicated recipe using the oven, unaware that the temperature gauge was slightly off. She didn't check it beforehand, because she assumed it would work like new, modern equipment. I pretended not to notice, silently watching as she struggled. Flour spilled on the counter. The sauce burned slightly. She became flustered, muttering under her breath. But instead of intervening directly, I waited, letting the situation escalate just enough for her to realize her own incompetence without my interference. Her guests began arriving, and the stress on Anna's face was obvious. She tried to maintain composure, but small mistakes kept happening. A poorly measured ingredient, a missing utensil, a dish that didn't turn out as planned. I offered quiet guidance only when necessary, phrasing it politely as tips rather than instructions. Each correction subtly reminded her, and the guests, of my authority and experience. By the time dinner was served, Anna was exhausted, both physically and mentally. Her efforts to impress everyone had backfired, and the chaos of the kitchen had left her frazzled. I quietly prepared a few side dishes and arranged the table in a way that showcased the home's original charm. It wasn't about taking over completely. It was about reminding everyone that the home and its care was something she couldn't just claim without understanding. During dinner, one of Anna's friends commented, "This home has such a warm, lived-in feeling. It's really special." Anna smiled nervously, unsure how to respond. I intervened subtly. "Thank you. I've lived here for many years, and it's full of memories. I think that's why it feels so comfortable for all of us." The remark was gentle, but its effect was powerful. The room fell silent for a moment as the weight of my words settled in. Anna's smile faltered slightly, a subtle acknowledgement that I had reminded everyone of my role in creating the warmth she was trying to claim as her own. Later that evening, after the guests had left, Anna confronted me in the kitchen. Her tone was sharp, frustrated, and tinged with fear. "Mom, I don't understand. Why does everything go wrong when I try to do things my way? It's like you're always one step ahead." I smiled softly, pouring myself a cup of tea. "Anna, life isn't about rushing through things or claiming control without understanding. Experience and wisdom aren't things you can ignore or dismiss. You may think you're independent, but independence without respect is fragile." Her eyes welled with tears, part frustration, part recognition. She finally saw what I had been doing all along, quietly guiding her, reclaiming control of the household and restoring the balance that she had disturbed with her arrogance. Over the next few days, Anna began to change. She sought my advice more often, asking questions she might have dismissed before. She started taking my opinions seriously, realizing that my years of experience weren't obstacles, but guidance. For the first time since her return, we began communicating, not as adversaries, but as mother and daughter seeking understanding. But this turning point wasn't just about reconciliation. It was about reclaiming respect. I began asserting small authorities in the home again, deciding on household maintenance, guiding family decisions, and reintroducing elements of the home that had sentimental value. Anna no longer argued, realizing that my presence wasn't a threat, but a stabilizing force she had underestimated. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, she quietly said, "Mom, I think I was wrong. I didn't understand what I was doing. I'm sorry for everything." I reached out and held her hand. "Anna, apology accepted. But remember, respect isn't just words. It's actions. And it's never too late to start making the right ones." That night, as I reflected on the events of the past few weeks, I realized that the most satisfying victories weren't about humiliation or revenge. They were about balance and justice. Anna had underestimated me, dismissed me, and even tried to erase me. But through patience, strategy, and subtle guidance, I had reclaimed my place in the home and restored the dignity that had been threatened. It wasn't over completely, of course. Life with Anna would still have challenges, and old patterns could resurface. But now she understood that I was not invisible. That age did not equal irrelevance, and that underestimating someone is always a mistake, especially a mother. And as I looked around the house, filled with memories of decades and the gentle glow of evening light, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I had weathered the storm, endured the betrayal, and come out stronger, not just as a mother, but as a woman who had reclaimed her power. The turning point had arrived, and it had changed everything. The daughter who once believed I was too old to matter now saw the truth. Experience, resilience, and wisdom cannot be erased, no matter how boldly they are challenged. The days following the turning point were quiet, but the change in the atmosphere was unmistakable. Anna no longer carried the same arrogance that had dominated her every action since returning home. Instead, there was an underlying tension, a hesitancy, and surprisingly, a curiosity. She began observing me, not with judgment, but with a newfound awareness. It started with small gestures. Anna asked for my opinion on her work projects, something she had never done before. She consulted me about household matters and even asked for my help in planning a small gathering of friends. These were subtle shifts, but for me, they were proof that the lessons I had been patiently teaching were sinking in. One afternoon, as I prepared tea in the kitchen, Anna approached me with a hesitant smile. "Mom, can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. "Of course," I replied, gesturing for her to sit. I could see she was nervous, fidgeting with her hands as if she didn't know where to start. I've been thinking," she began, finally meeting my gaze. I acted so selfishly when I came back. I thought I could just take over and do whatever I wanted without considering you, or the life you built here. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. I felt a warmth in my chest, a mix of relief and cautious optimism. "Anna, what matters now is that you understand. Apologies are meaningful, but actions, respect, thoughtfulness, and care, are even more important." Her eyes filled with tears. "I know, Mom, and I want to do better. I don't want to repeat my mistakes." That evening, as we sat together sipping tea, I began to share stories of the house, of the memories that had shaped us both. I told her about the first Christmas we celebrated here, the summers we spent planting roses in the garden, and the challenges I had faced as a single mother raising her. With each story, I could see her perspective shifting. She began to appreciate the depth of my sacrifices, the strength it had taken to maintain this home and family for so many years. It wasn't instant forgiveness, of course. Anna still struggled with guilt and shame, but her acknowledgement was the first step toward rebuilding trust. I realized that while my earlier strategies had been about asserting authority and reclaiming respect, the next phase needed to be about genuine connection and reconciliation. Over the following weeks, we worked together on small projects around the house. Anna helped restore old furniture, repaint walls, and even replant sections of the garden. These activities were therapeutic, allowing her to see the home not as a space to dominate, but as a shared sanctuary filled with love and history. I also began teaching her practical skills she had overlooked while living abroad, cooking traditional family recipes, understanding household maintenance, and appreciating the sentimental value of our belongings. These were lessons in humility, patience, and care. Slowly, I saw a transformation in her character. She was becoming more considerate, more empathetic, and more aware of the impact of her actions. One afternoon, we sat in the living room discussing a family event we were planning. Anna looked at me thoughtfully and said, "Mom, I realize now that I've taken so much for granted. You've done so much for me, and I didn't see it before. I want to make it right." Her words touched me deeply. I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "Anna, it's never too late to start making amends. What matters is that you're willing to learn and grow." As our bond began to strengthen, I noticed a subtle shift in the household dynamics. Friends and neighbors who had sensed tension now remarked on the warmth and harmony returning to the home. Anna's colleagues commented on her newfound maturity and thoughtfulness, and most importantly, I felt a sense of fulfillment in seeing my daughter transform, not because I forced it, but because she had chosen to embrace it. However, I knew that maintaining this balance required continued patience. The lessons of respect, humility, and gratitude needed reinforcement. I continued to guide Anna gently, offering advice, sharing wisdom, and subtly reminding her of the consequences of arrogance. There were moments of friction, of course. Anna still struggled with old habits and occasional impatience, but these were minor compared to the dramatic shift that had occurred since her return. Each challenge became an opportunity to teach, to reinforce the importance of respect, and to strengthen our bond. One evening, as we looked out over the garden bathed in the golden glow of sunset, Anna turned to me and said, "Mom, I think I finally understand. This house isn't just a space. It's a reflection of everything you've built, everything you've endured. I'm sorry I ever tried to take it from you." I smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. "Anna, understanding is the first step. The rest comes with time, effort, and genuine care, and I know you're capable of that." That night, as I prepared for bed, I reflected on the journey so far. The initial betrayal had been painful, yes, but it had also provided an opportunity to teach, to guide, and to reclaim my rightful place, not just in the home, but in my daughter's heart. The path to understanding had begun, and with it came hope. Hope that Anna would continue to grow. Hope that our relationship could be restored. And hope that the lessons of respect, patience, and love would endure for years to come. For the first time since her return, I felt a deep sense of peace. The storm of conflict had passed, and in its wake was a foundation stronger than before. A bond forged through patience, wisdom, and unwavering love. The days that followed were filled with small but meaningful gestures. Anna's attitude had changed, and it became evident that she was genuinely trying to rebuild the bond that had been damaged. She began to approach me with humility, asking for guidance in areas she had once dismissed as trivial or unimportant. It was a subtle shift, but it carried enormous significance. One morning, Anna came into the kitchen while I was preparing breakfast. "Mom," she said softly, "can you help me understand how you planned the garden layout? I want it to look as beautiful as before." I looked up and smiled, realizing that this was not just about flowers. It was about respect and recognition. "Of course, Anna. Let's go through it together. There's a lot you can learn, and I'm happy to share." We spent the morning measuring, planting, and reorganizing the flower beds. As we worked side by side, she began to open up about her feelings. "I realize now how selfish I was," she admitted. "I thought returning home meant I could control everything. But I didn't see the work and care behind this house, behind you. I'm sorry." Her sincerity touched me deeply. "Anna, acknowledging mistakes is the first step. True growth comes when you act on that understanding every day." Over the next few weeks, Anna took initiative to make amends. She repaired some of the furniture she had carelessly rearranged, cleaned areas of the house she had neglected, and even invited me to join her in planning small home improvements. These gestures were more than symbolic. They were a demonstration of her willingness to change and a recognition of my role as the matriarch of the home. One evening, as we sat together reviewing old family photos, Anna's expression softened. "Mom, I don't know why I was so blind before. I see now that you built all of this. Every memory, every corner of this house, every tradition. I want to be part of that, not erase it." I placed a hand over hers, feeling the warmth of reconciliation. "Anna, it's never too late to honor the past while shaping the future. I'm proud that you recognize it." The shift in Anna's behavior didn't go unnoticed by others. Neighbors who had been quietly observing the tension remarked on the warmth returning to the house. Friends visiting for gatherings noticed a more harmonious atmosphere. And even Anna's colleagues commented on the positive change in her demeanor. The home that had once been a battleground of subtle conflicts now radiated calm and mutual respect. But rebuilding the bond wasn't just about household tasks or public appearances. It was about deep emotional connection. I began sharing more of my life stories with her, tales of struggle, sacrifice, and joy that she had never fully understood. In turn, Anna began sharing her experiences abroad, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned. These conversations were not easy at first. There were moments of tension, moments when old grievances surfaced, but they were always met with patience and understanding. One afternoon, while arranging the living room together, Anna paused and said, "Mom, I want to truly honor you, not just in words, but in how I live my life here. Can we make a list of traditions to keep alive? Things that matter to our family?" I was moved by her request. "Absolutely, Anna. Let's start with the ones that hold the most meaning, and we can add new ones together. creating a bridge between the past and the future. As we worked on the list, it became clear that reconciliation was not a single moment, but a process. Each small act of respect, each acknowledgement of care, each shared memory was a step toward rebuilding trust. Anna's willingness to learn and grow made it possible for the bond between us to deepen in a way it never had before. Even the little things mattered. She began leaving thoughtful notes of appreciation, helping with daily chores without being asked, and showing genuine interest in my routines. It was as if a veil of arrogance had lifted, revealing a daughter who was ready to honor her mother's life and work. One evening, as we enjoyed a quiet cup of tea together, Anna looked at me earnestly. "Mom, I've been thinking. I want to do something special to show how much I value you and everything you've done. I want to host a family gathering. Not for me, but for us. A way to celebrate our bond." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Anna, that's a wonderful idea. It's a perfect way to honor both our past and the journey we've taken to get here." The gathering was planned with care. Anna invited family, friends, and neighbors. She took the lead in organizing, cooking, and decorating. But this time, she did it with humility and respect, always consulting me and acknowledging my experience. It was a transformation I could hardly have imagined when she first returned, full of arrogance and disregard. During the celebration, I watched as Anna interacted with our guests, sharing stories about our family, laughing warmly, and showing genuine pride in her home and heritage. The energy was joyful, harmonious, and deeply healing. For the first time in months, I felt a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. As the night drew to a close, Anna turned to me with a smile that was both tender and sincere. "Mom, thank you for everything. For teaching me, guiding me, and never giving up on me. I hope I can continue to make you proud." I held her hand and replied, "Anna, you already are making me proud. The journey hasn't been easy, but you've shown growth, understanding, and respect. That's all a mother could ever ask for." That night, as I prepared for bed, I reflected on the journey from betrayal to reconciliation. The process had required patience, strategy, and resilience. But the outcome was more meaningful than I could have imagined. Anna's transformation was complete. She had learned the value of respect, the importance of humility, and the enduring power of love. The bond we had rebuilt was stronger than ever. It was no longer just about a house or a room. It was about understanding, trust, and shared history. And as I closed my eyes, I knew that while challenges would continue to arise, the foundation we had restored would carry us forward, together, as mother and daughter. The transformation in Anna was remarkable. She no longer saw the house as a territory to conquer or a prize to claim. Instead, she began to see it for what it truly was, a home filled with decades of love, sacrifices, and memories. And more importantly, she started recognizing the legacy her mother had built, not just in furniture and walls, but in values, resilience, and family unity. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the living room windows, Anna approached me with a folder in her hands. Her eyes were bright with determination and a hint of nervous excitement. "Mom," she said softly, "I've been thinking a lot about the future. I don't want to just live here. I want to honor everything you've built." I started compiling old photos, letters, and documents about our family history. I want us to create a family archive together, so our legacy isn't forgotten. I was deeply moved. "Anna, that's beautiful! Preserving our memories. our history, and everything this home represents. That's a gift not only to us but to future generations. Over the next several days, we worked side by side. I shared stories behind each photo, each letter, each keepsake. Anna listened intently, asking questions, and showing genuine curiosity about the lives of her grandparents, her childhood experiences, and the challenges I had faced as a single mother. Each story deepened her appreciation for the family legacy and strengthened our bond. Anna didn't stop at listening. She took initiative, organizing the documents, labeling photos, and creating a display in the living room where our family history could be seen and appreciated by everyone. She even started designing a digital version of our family archive, making it accessible for distant relatives and future generations. Her enthusiasm and dedication were inspiring. One afternoon, while we were working on the archive, she paused and said, "Mom, I realized something important. I was so focused on asserting control that I never appreciated what you were teaching me all along. You weren't trying to compete with me. You were guiding me. And I didn't see it." I smiled warmly. "Anna, the journey wasn't just about reclaiming space or authority. It was about teaching respect, patience, and understanding. And you've embraced that, which is why this moment is so meaningful." Our collaborative work on the family archive sparked other initiatives. Anna started volunteering to help with neighborhood events, organizing small community gatherings, and even helping local children with reading and crafts. She had become not only a more considerate daughter, but also a compassionate member of the community. One evening, as we sat in the garden watching the sunset, Anna turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "Mom, I want to do something for the house that will last. A way to leave my mark, but in a way that honors yours, not overshadows it." I was curious. "What do you have in mind?" She smiled. "I want to plant a rose garden next to the old oak tree. Each rose will represent a lesson, a memory, or a story we've shared. It will be a living testament to our bond and our family's legacy." Tears filled my eyes. "Anna, that's one of the most thoughtful things anyone could do. Let's do it together." Over the next few days, we worked tirelessly, planting roses of various colors. Each color had meaning: red for love, yellow for resilience, pink for joy, and white for peace. As we planted each rose, we shared memories associated with it, laughing, reminiscing, and even shedding a few tears. It was a symbolic act of reconciliation, respect, and mutual understanding. The completion of the rose garden marked a turning point not only in our relationship, but in Anna's personal growth. She had learned to balance independence with respect, ambition with humility, and assertiveness with compassion. She had embraced the value of legacy, not as something to claim, but as something to honor and preserve. Anna's transformation extended beyond the household. She became more responsible, considerate, and empathetic in her interactions with friends, colleagues, and the broader community. She often spoke proudly about the lessons she had learned from me, acknowledging the guidance and wisdom that had shaped her journey. One afternoon, while we were arranging the last section of the rose garden, Anna turned to me and said, "Mom, I understand now that respect and love aren't about dominance or control. They're about care, patience, and shared experiences. I hope I can continue to live by these lessons every day." I held her hand and replied, "Anna, you already are. The changes you've made, the way you honor this home, and the way you treat others, reflect the growth and understanding you've embraced. That's the true legacy of our family. That night, as we sat together in the living room, surrounded by the warmth of the home and the newly planted roses visible through the window, I felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The conflict, the tension, and the subtle battles of the past months had given way to understanding, harmony, and love. The journey from betrayal to reconciliation had not been easy. It had required patience, strategy, and resilience. But the outcome was immeasurable. Anna had grown into a thoughtful, respectful, and compassionate young woman, ready to carry forward the family legacy with pride and care. As I looked around the room, I realized that the house, once a battlefield of subtle conflicts, was now a sanctuary of shared memories, mutual respect, and enduring love. The mother-daughter bond, tested and strained, had emerged stronger than ever, fortified by lessons learned, hearts healed, and a legacy honored. And as I reflected on the journey, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The daughter who had once dismissed me as too old to matter now stood beside me, not as a rival, but as a partner in preserving the past, celebrating the present, and shaping the future. The legacy of love, patience, and resilience was secure, and our bond, once fractured, had been beautifully restored. By now the transformation in Anna was evident, not only to me but to everyone around us. She had matured into a thoughtful, considerate, and grounded young woman. The arrogance and entitlement she had brought with her from California were gone, replaced with humility, patience, and an earnest desire to honor the lessons she had once dismissed. One morning, Anna came into the kitchen carrying a notebook. "Mom," she said with a smile, "I've been thinking about ways to apply everything I've learned. Not just in the house, but in my life and work. I want to make sure I don't forget these lessons." I was intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "I'm writing a personal journal," she explained, "documenting the experiences we've shared, the lessons you've taught me, and the mistakes I've made. I want it to remind me daily of what really matters: respect, patience, and care." I felt a surge of pride. "Anna, that's a wonderful idea. Reflection is the key to growth, and keeping a record will help you stay grounded in the values you've embraced." Over the next few weeks, Anna immersed herself in this practice. Each morning she wrote about the previous day, how she approached tasks with mindfulness, how she communicated with others, and how she applied the lessons she had learned from me. It was a quiet but profound change, a daily reminder of the wisdom she had once ignored. Her transformation didn't stop at personal reflection. Anna began actively participating in the community, using the skills and values she had embraced at home to positively impact those around her. She volunteered at the local community center, helped organize events for children, and even mentored young women who were struggling with independence and self-confidence. Her experiences with our reconciliation had taught her empathy, and she was now using it to guide and support others. One afternoon, while we were sitting in the garden enjoying tea, Anna turned to me thoughtfully. "Mom, I realized something important. I want to continue the legacy you've built, not just in this home, but in the way we treat people. Respect, kindness, and patience. I want those to define everything I do." I smiled warmly, touched by her words. "Anna, that's the greatest lesson of all. Life isn't just about achieving personal success. It's about leaving a positive impact on others. I'm proud of the person you've become." The house, once a battleground of subtle conflicts, was now a sanctuary of understanding and mutual respect. Anna had begun managing daily tasks with mindfulness, always consulting me when necessary, and applying the principles she had learned. Even small things like coordinating household chores or preparing meals became acts of consideration rather than control. Her colleagues and friends noticed the change as well. Anna became a source of inspiration for others, sharing stories of the lessons she had learned and the transformation she had undergone. She spoke openly about the importance of humility, patience, and respecting those who had paved the way for her. People admired her honesty, maturity, and the grace with which she carried herself. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, Anna paused and said, "Mom, I want to do something special for you. I want to host a small dinner for family and friends, not to show off, but to celebrate what I've learned from you, to honor you and everything you've done for me." I was deeply moved. "Anna, that's incredibly thoughtful. It's not the dinner itself, but the intention behind it that matters. I'm proud that you recognize that." The dinner was a success. Anna planned the menu, decorated the table, and welcomed our guests with warmth and humility. Throughout the evening, she acknowledged my guidance, shared memories from our journey, and expressed gratitude for the lessons I had taught her. Friends and family were impressed by her transformation, and I could see the pride and respect in their eyes. That night, after the guests had left, Anna and I sat together in the garden, under the soft glow of the moon. "Mom," she said, her voice filled with emotion, "I know I can never repay everything you've done for me, but I promise to live by the lessons you've taught me, to honor our family, and to continue your legacy of love, patience, and wisdom." I reached out, taking her hand gently. "Anna, your promise is more than enough. The best way to honor a legacy is to live it, to carry forward the values that have shaped us, and to teach them to others. You're doing exactly that." As I watched Anna in that moment, I realized the full impact of our journey. The daughter who had once dismissed me as too old to matter had grown into a woman who understood the true value of respect, humility, and love. She had embraced wisdom, not as a limitation, but as a guide for living a meaningful and impactful life. And as I reflected on the past months, I understood that our reconciliation had created something extraordinary, a bond stronger than before, built not on dominance or fear, but on understanding shared experiences and mutual respect. The house, the garden, and even the family archive we had created were tangible symbols of our journey. But the true legacy lay in Anna's growth and the lessons she would carry forward. It was a testament to the power of patience, strategy, and unwavering love. A story of transformation that would continue to inspire both of us for years to come. That night, as we turned off the lights and prepared for sleep, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The storms of conflict, the subtle battles, and the moments of tension had all led to this. A daughter who not only respected her mother, but had internalized the lessons of a lifetime. The journey had been long, but the outcome was priceless. Anna had embraced wisdom. She had honored the past, lived fully in the present, and was now ready to shape the future with grace, humility, and respect. And for me, that was the greatest victory of all. A daughter transformed, a bond restored, and a legacy secured. The weeks that followed marked a new chapter in our lives. A chapter filled with understanding, respect, and love. The tension that had once clouded the house had vanished, replaced by harmony and a sense of purpose. Anna had fully embraced the lessons of patience, humility, and care, and I could see the woman she had become. Thoughtful, grounded, and compassionate. One Saturday morning, as the sun bathed the house in golden light, Anna approached me with an envelope in her hand. Her eyes were shining with excitement and anticipation. "Mom," she said softly, "I've been working on something special. I wanted to put into words everything I've learned from you, everything I feel now about our bond. I hope this shows you how much I appreciate you." I took the envelope with gentle hands, feeling the weight of her gesture. Inside was a beautifully handwritten letter, detailing her reflections, her gratitude, and the transformation she had undergone. Each word spoke of sincerity, humility, and love, the very qualities she had struggled to embrace before. Reading the letter, I felt tears welling up in my eyes. It wasn't just a letter. It was a testament to the journey we had shared, the conflicts, the lessons, the reconciliation, and the growth. It was proof that even the deepest wounds could heal with patience, guidance, and unwavering love. "Anna," I whispered, taking her hand, "this is one of the most precious gifts I could ever receive. Thank you for your honesty, your reflection, and your love." She smiled, a mixture of relief and pride on her face. "Mom, I couldn't have reached this place without you. You taught me to respect, to care, and to value the people and the home that shaped me. I promise to live by these lessons every day." That afternoon, we decided to host a small family gathering, a celebration of reconciliation and restored bonds. Anna took the lead in planning, but it was different this time. Every choice she made, decorations, menu, seating arrangements, was thoughtful and considerate. She consulted me constantly, not to seek permission, but to honor my experience and wisdom. As our guests arrived, I watched Anna interact with grace and humility. She shared stories of our journey, spoke about the importance of family and respect, and openly acknowledged the guidance and lessons she had received. Friends and relatives were moved, many commenting on the remarkable transformation they witnessed. During the dinner, Anna stood and raised a toast. "To my mother," she began, her voice steady and warm, "who has taught me the most important lessons in life: patience, respect, and the value of love. I am grateful for her guidance, for her wisdom, and for never giving up on me, even when I didn't deserve it. Thank you, Mom, for everything." Tears filled my eyes as I reached for her hand. "Thank you, Anna," I said softly. "But the greatest gift you can give is not words. It's the way you live, the love you show, and the respect you carry forward. You've already given me that, and it's more than enough." After the gathering, as the house settled into quiet, we walked through the garden, now adorned with the roses we had planted together. Each flower seemed to symbolize a moment in our journey: red for love, yellow for resilience, pink for joy, and white for peace. The garden was no longer just a collection of plants. It was a living testament to our bond, nurtured through trials, patience, and growth. Anna turned to me, her voice soft but filled with conviction. "Mom, I want to continue honoring you and our family every day. I want to carry forward the lessons I've learned and make sure they shape how I live my life, and maybe even help others along the way." I nodded, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. "Anna, that is all a mother could ever hope for. You've embraced wisdom, learned humility, and now carry respect and love in your heart. That is the true legacy." In the weeks that followed, our relationship deepened further. Anna continued to engage with the community, volunteer her time, and mentor others, always carrying the values she had embraced. At home, she collaborated with me in maintaining the house, managing the garden, and preserving our family history. The home, once a battleground of subtle conflicts, now radiated warmth, harmony, and shared purpose. There were moments of reflection for both of us. Quiet evenings spent talking about the past, sharing hopes for the future, and acknowledging the growth we had witnessed in each other. Anna often expressed gratitude not just through words, but through thoughtful actions and consideration in every task she undertook. One evening, as we sat under the oak tree in the garden, watching the last light of sunset fade, Anna leaned her head on my shoulder. "Mom," she said softly, "I know I can never fully repay you for everything you've done, but I promise to honor your teachings, our family, and the bond we've rebuilt every single day." I felt tears of joy and pride streaming down my face. "Anna, you've already given me the greatest gift. A daughter who understands, respects, and loves fully. That's more than enough." As darkness settled over the house, I realized the full meaning of our journey. What had begun as a conflict, rooted in arrogance, misunderstanding, and betrayal, had transformed into a relationship grounded in wisdom, mutual respect, and love. Anna had grown into a woman capable of carrying forward the legacy of patience, humility, and compassion, ensuring that the lessons of the past would continue to shape the future. And in that quiet, magical moment, I knew with certainty that our bond, tested and strained, had been fully restored. The house, the garden, and even the roses we had planted were symbols of our journey. But the true testament was the love, respect, and understanding we now shared. The daughter who once dismissed me as too old to matter had become a woman who not only valued her mother but had internalized the wisdom that would guide her for the rest of her life. The journey had been long, filled with challenges, tears, and lessons, but the outcome was priceless. A bond restored, a legacy honored, and a mother and daughter united like never before. As I closed my eyes that night, I felt peace, pride, and gratitude. The story of betrayal, patience, strategy, and growth had reached its resolution, and I knew that the love and respect we had rebuilt would endure. A shining example of what it means to forgive, guide, and nurture, even in the face of hurt.